Hello there. So as I was explaining in the previous video, the Americans have got a twin problem that cannot be solved. On one hand, they want to overtake Russia and China in Africa. On the other hand, they want to subjugate, or rather, to cause pain and suffering to the African people. They want to keep the black race oppressed so that they can carry on with the narrative that white people are the superior race led by the white Americans with their other white allies, Canada, UK, white in South Africa, and New Zealand, and Australia. So it's important to them, to their foreign policy, to ensure that black Africa is always oppressed. So that is why you will have black leaders who know what they're doing, who love their people, they get killed, you know. But it's easy to even hide that because those black people get killed by fellow blacks, and you end up having corrupt Africans leading countries. And they've got the support of the United Nations. You'll be surprised why the United Nations even supports Itim Nangagwa, a Kukura Hundist, a very well documented non-Kukura Hundist. But he's supported. Why? Because they know that they need Itim Nangagwa in power so that the black Zimbabweans are going to suffer. Same way across all of Africa, wherever there's oppression. They will speak vocally and put sanctions, but those sanctions destroy the very same black people, the black majority that they claim to love. So in reality, they don't love black people in Africa. The 1.4 billion people in Africa, the foreign policy of the Americans to ensure that they are impoverished forever. At the same time, they also want to defeat the Russians and the Chinese. So the Chinese and the Russians see a gap. So okay, these hated, neglected 1.4 billion people in Africa. Let China have come up with a Belt and Road Initiative. Let them come up with things like BRICS. Now, if the African leaders are not corrupt, they, they can leverage on Chinese and Russian help. But the travesty is that since there's no oversight on our political systems, because the global superpower doesn't want that oversight to be there, the global superpower wants oppressors to be in power. So in China, he's got a policy of not interfering in the politics of the nations that they deal with. So the abuse of the people carries on, first of all, due to the mindset of the global superpower, USA. Number two, the mindset of the corrupt leaders like Itim Nangagwa. So the people have got nowhere to go to. They can't go to ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is the oppressor. They can't go to the United Nations, to USA, because the USA is a supporter of the oppressors. But it will vocally speak against corruption. But with all the nuclear weapons, with all the big US military that they have, they are failing to deal with a small boy like Itim Nangagwa. Yet they've got all the power in the world. They put sanctions that do not make Mnangagwa poor, rather sanctions that make Mnangagwa stronger and more powerful. And those sanctions destroy the ordinary Zimbabweans, not the politicians. So you get to see what I'm saying when I'm telling you that the oppressor of Black Africa and in particular Zimbabweans is not just the NPF, it is the United States government itself. It is the biggest military in the world, the US military. So I told you they've got a twin problem because they cannot maintain that strategy forever. Doesn't matter whether you kill me or don't, it means nothing. The word of the truth is the truth. They cannot sustain that because their rival, the Chinese, see that sweet spot. And China is bringing some sooty things to the Africans, you know. And you are having coups now across Africa. Africa is becoming revolutionarized. And we're having these militaries, army generals that are very wise. They take off, they remove these corrupt leaders that are sponsored by the West, that is sponsored by France, and they install their own leaders. You know, I thank God for the coups in North and Central Africa, because so far Niger is doing well. Burkina Faso, Mali, they're struggling because it's a very hard thing anyway to start running a country, a military state, when you never had the experience. But they are not bad. They're good leaders. Okay, so we need to see more and more African armies who understand their place and their value in transforming their own economies. By the way, all countries are military states. Don't be lied to and told that the military must get out of politics. It's impossible. Okay, all countries are military states. It's just that the others are good at hiding it. And when you hide it so very well, your country is called a democratic state. And there's no democracy. All countries are military states. So African militaries must get to understand that all countries are military states. You need to put in place democratic processes, at least that mirror or seek to address the needs of the general populace. That if those needs are met, you can actually run a good economy that is able to keep the wealth of the military state within that nation. And because the military state, the military itself can grow, they are able to uh, have a hegemony even outside their borders, for the purposes of protecting their foreign interests, which means their foreign investments. So if you're Zimbabwe, you invest in Mozambique heavily. So you need some military oversight on Mozambique to protect your interests, to protect your investments in that country, not because you want to destroy them, but because you want to protect your investments in there. So the hegemony is supposed to address that. There's nothing wrong with the US military being having bases all over the world. It's because the US capital system has invested in all countries around the world. So to protect those investments, they need military protection. You know, people are crazy. Okay, you give someone $2,000 to do something, they just run away with it. So you need your military in other countries to protect your investments in those countries. So that's the reason why we have got US bases around the world. It's not a crime. So fine, I support it. It's okay. Okay, what is wrong is to oppress people because you can, because you do have the military weapons. So it is important for African militaries to begin to learn that as well. Emulate the American military. Be a military state, but don't say it. Call yourself a democratic state by having elections, free and fair elections. It's very easy. Take a look, learn from the best, learn from the Americans. Don't they have free and fair elections? They have. But how free, how you get there to that ballot? Those people that are up for American presidents, it's not just anybody. Okay, there is checks and balances, systems that ensure that the right people end up being there. So anything the day, doesn't matter whether you vote for Donald Trump or you vote for Joe Biden. The US military state has got both of their men in the right places. So you need to be smart African militaries. You do not have this one guy who's a president with all power and killing people for money. No, 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 no. Now let these young boys and girls battle out with ideas, fish the ideas from the people. Let them argue the ideas. Let them vote for the best idea. Let that guy whose ideas has been voted to come into power. And you just the military state, just rest at the back. Just like the American military. Learn from the best. And then that's how Africa is going to get out of poverty, gonna get out of darkness. Idimna ngaba Valerius Banda and and General Chiwenga, to me, they are faces of the elders in our nation. They need to understand that when they are fighting this political warfare, the the fight should not be Dinoda with the president. That's the wrong way of approaching it. The fight has to be creating a state. You are the patriarchs. You have got power. Power is not a position. Power is influence. Influence comes through various ways. I do believe Iti Mnangagwa is influential. General Chiwenga is excessively influential. It doesn't have to be the president. Toraka Mfara, in me, take me, make me the president of Zimbabwe. You sit there at the back, change Kamari, build the country. Okay, it's a military state. All countries are military states. All of them. Not even one is not. The military is involved in everything. It set up the political, the political atmosphere. Get what I'm saying? So we need wisdom. Our national leaders need to understand that to avoid things like the Hague, keeping your investments safe, avoid things like sanctions, you have to instill of values first within yourself as an individual. As an individual, you must tell yourself that you should fight your very own corruption. Okay, fight your own sin. Today is Easter. Ask the Lord for forgiveness and ask the Lord to bless you and empower you and forgive your sins and empower you with the ability to build the nation. Building the nation is an effort. It's not an easy thing. It's not a nice thing to do. It's an effort. Positions come with pain, with sacrifice. We need to be ready for that. So that is the key message that I wanted to deliver this evening. Have a great morning.